Welcome to this beautiful spring day on March the 13th. Steve, we probably should have had this outside. Might have been a good idea today. It is very nice.
I would have loved it outside today, so it's awesome out there.
I think so. Welcome. If I've not had the pleasure of meeting you yet, I am Gina Woodward. I'm the Regional Director of the Small Business Development Center here at West Texas A&M University. My office is in Amarillo, but the beautiful campus is in Canyon. If you've never gotten to visit it, I encourage you to do that. If you're not familiar with SBDCs, very briefly, I'll fill you in because we're here to listen to Steve today. SBDCs are a nationwide program that the SBA funds, along with partners in Texas with the state of Texas. We receive funding from both of those. Our mission from the SBA is to help people either start small businesses, or if they have an existing small business and they want to expand it, or perhaps they've got some kind of a problem that they're working to overcome, that's where the SBDC and our consultants can step in. You know, one of the things that I've found most beneficial in my time here that the SBDC does is I think just being a third party that can look over your materials and your business. We're not looking at that all day like you are, and we're able to sometimes see things that you might overlook. Thankfully, because we have that funding from the SBA, our consulting services are all free of charge. So you're welcome to meet with us in person in our office in Amarillo. We co-house with our sister department in College of Business, the WT Enterprise Center on Northwestern. And then we also meet with people over Zoom and phone because we do serve the entire Texas Panhandle. One of the other things that we do a lot of besides consulting is training, and that's exactly what you're here for today. Most of our training is either free or very low cost, just enough to cover our own expenses. Every center is a little bit different. There are SBDCs all across the nation. Personally, at our center, we always try to focus on helping you learn new skills. I know our time is limited, and I'm always irritated when I sit in on workshops and they spend an hour talking about something and you leave there, but you didn't really learn how to do anything. So we're very focused on making sure that you learn a new skill. So that's what we're going to do today. When we wrap up in about an hour, you're going to know how to be like the very best interviewer in the whole town, in the whole Panhandle, thanks to Steve. So I would like you to meet my coworker now. Steve Sellers is at the Canyon campus, and he is with the Career and Professional Development Office. Steve, I've been here for 16 years, and I feel like you've been here that whole time, probably longer. How long have you been here?
I've actually been at WT for 30 years. So I started when I was 12, but I have been here for 30 years and I've loved it. It's been a great fit for me.
Oh, that is incredible. Thank you so much for all that you do for us. Steve, will you tell us a little bit about what you get to do at Career and Professional Development?
So our main role is we want to connect students. We want them to graduate, number one, but we want to connect them with employers and jobs that they can go out and apply once they've graduated from WT. So I work in the career office, and I specifically work kind of in the employer relations area. So any of you guys that are on the call today, if we can help you in any way in terms of recruiting or just finding interns, part-time workers, full-time folks, that's what our office is all about, and we love doing that.
I love that. And that's one of the things we try to impress upon our clients is that to work with you, they don't have to have any official affiliation with WT. They don't necessarily have to be alumni. Your goal is to help connect our fantastic graduates with local business owners. All right. So Steve, I am going to mute myself and I'll turn off my video. If you want to share your slides, we'll get started.
Well, I am so excited to be here and to share some interviewing tips with you guys. What I want to do is I want to share 7 tips that I think will hopefully help you conduct better interviews and ultimately find the talent that you're looking for. And I need to give you a little bit of a disclaimer here. I mean, I haven't done tons and tons of interviewing. I've done some here in the career office. But I have worked with a lot of companies who do interviews, and I've talked with a lot of students about their interviewing experiences. So hopefully I've gleaned a little bit in 30 years over that, but I'm certainly not the expert, but I want to share with you some ideas and thoughts that I hopefully will help you interview better. All right, there we go. So to start off with, and you guys probably know this, but interviewing mistakes are really costly. So there was a career builder survey that talked about the average cost of a bad hire. So in the chat, what do you think the average cost of a bad hire is? Is it 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15, or 17,000? So in the chat, put in there what you think the answer is to that question. I'll see some, let's see what people are saying here. At least 8, 17, 10. Yeah. What Career Builder said is they said the average cost of a bad hire was $15,000. And I don't know if that's exactly right, and maybe not exactly right in for your particular scenario, but regardless, interviewing mistakes, if you hire the wrong person, it is costly for a business. I've also heard that the replacement costs can range from 1 to 3 times the open position's annual salary. So anyway, having to interview, having to replace somebody was a bad hire, it's a really expensive thing. It's a costly mistake, and you want to try to avoid that if at all possible. There's some cost in terms of hiring the wrong person and having to rehire. Some costs are obvious, like the time you need to take out to interview personnel that need to recruit, interview, and then training, coaching, mentoring that person. So some of those are obvious costs in terms of like hiring, but other costs are not so obvious. And some of the things that I think about when the hidden cost of hiring the wrong person, obviously, when you're down a person, you're thin-staffed. Although I would say that employers that I've talked to, they would rather be short-staffed than have the wrong person in the slot. So I would encourage you not to get in too big of a hurry just to fill a slot. I would really focus on trying to get the best possible fit that you can, because you'd rather have more work to do than the wrong person in the slot. Participating in the interviews takes time that you could spend doing other things. So recruiting and interviewing and going through all of that, it's a time-consuming process. And I can speak from here at WT, it takes a long time to go through all of the steps and to work with HR and all of that. And you had a small business, it may not be like it is at a larger organization, but still, it's a lot of time that you lose when you have to recruit and hire somebody else. There's also missed opportunities. Being down staff can sometimes cause you to have to say no to things that you normally would like to say yes to. In our office, we're full staff now. We've been that way for a few months, but for a few months, we were down 3 people in our office. We just had retirements and people leaving and things like that. And for a while, there were things that we wanted to do as an office, but we just couldn't do them because we didn't have the staff. And we had to say no to some things that we would have loved to have said yes to. So when you have the wrong person or you have open slots, there's missed opportunities. And then the other things that I would say is like when you're not fully staffed or you have the wrong person in the position, it can cause low morale in your team. And then also just damage to your company reputation. Sometimes you're not providing the level of service that you would like to provide, those types of things. So there's other costs, there's hidden cost of hiring the wrong person above and beyond just the obvious cost. All right, so tip number 1 that I want to give you guys is study your job description. And it's surprising sometimes that here in our office, we will share a job description that we're recruiting for with all of our folks. And we ask them to come up with, what do you think are the skills that are needed for this position? And it's surprising sometimes the variety of opinions that people have on what it takes to do a particular position in your office. So I would really encourage you guys, when you have an opening, I would take that opportunity to really discuss that position and that position description with your team And then I would develop a list of critical skills that you're looking for, that you're needing in that particular position. When we do that here in our office, we come up with a Word doc that just lists all of the skills, and we try to rank them in the order of importance of, like, for this position, we think this is the most critical skill, and then this, and then this, and then this. And it usually takes a lot of discussion, but it's worth it to come up with this list, because once you develop that list, you can use that list to design job-specific questions that really apply to that particular position. It's going to give you the information about that person's skills and how they match up with that list of critical skills that you develop from studying the job description. So don't skip this step, and make sure that you spend enough time on this step, because I think it can be very, very helpful. And sometimes we think we know what is entailed in a position, but when you really talk about it with your team, you may find that there are other things that you didn't think about, or there's other characteristics that are important to that particular role that you just weren't, maybe it wasn't as top of mind as maybe it should have been. So that would be the first tip, is to study your job description. And the second tip that I would give to you is I would use behavioral-based interviewing questions. And I don't know if you guys know what behavioral-based interviewing questions are, but they're questions that they ask the candidate to describe, like, a specific time or instance when they demonstrated a particular skill. And I think behavioral-based interviewing questions are really, really good in terms of, like, predicting future behavior, either good behavior or bad behavior. If a person can really convince you with specific examples that they are able to provide excellent customer service, or they did provide excellent customer service in the past, I mean, if they did it in the past, I mean, it's very, very likely that they're going to be able to do that in the future. So that's the idea behind behavioral-based interviewing questions. And I would encourage you guys to think about your job-specific skills, and then develop behavioral-based questions off of those critical skills that you need. So some questions, and you could Google them and find them as well too, but some of the ones that I found that I think were really good, I put over here on the right-hand side of this screen. But describe a time when you had to step up and demonstrate leadership skills. Describe a time when you had to interact with a difficult customer, or tell me a time when you were under a lot of pressure. And I would guide those responses to those questions. We coach students with a tool called the CAR method of answering interview questions. And I would encourage you guys to use the same concept to coach the answers of these behavioral-based interviewing questions. And what the CAR method is, it's where people tell you the context, what was the situation going on, the action that they took, and then the result of that action. So when you ask these behavioral-based questions, I would really press them to tell me about the context, like, what was the situation, what was happening, what specific action did you take, and then what was the result of that action. And if they can, answer those three parts really, really well, then it's very likely that they really do have that skill. If they struggle to answer those three parts of this particular question, then it may be a question mark as to whether they have that skill or not. So anyway, I think behavioral-based questions are a really good way to kind of get a feel for whether that person can, do the skill that you need in the future. And the other thought on behavioral-based questions is, I think they're really good because they can help you get a better sense of that person's soft skills. And we all know how important soft skills are in all of the variety of different roles that people fill. I mean, soft skills are critical. When you hear people's stories that they tell you about a time that they had a problem, and then the actions that they took and the results, just hearing those stories, I think, can give you a better sense of that person's soft skills. So anyway, I encourage you to really think about behavioral-based questions and develop those types of questions that connect to those critical needs that you've identified from your job description. I put on this slide, and I'll send Gina has the slides, and I'll encourage her to send them out to you guys as well too. But there's a YouTube video, and it's too long for us to watch right now, but it's the, I follow this lady on YouTube. She's kind of a communication expert. She talks about these behavioral-based questions that can reveal quirks in people. And she has some great questions and some great ideas on what to listen for and things like that. So I think it's about a 10-minute video. So I would encourage you to watch that when you get a chance. She's really, really good. Vanessa, and I'm blanking on her last name, but she's really good in terms of communication. But I think these are great questions just to kind of uncover maybe some quirks in people or maybe red flags in folks. So, so anyway, behavioral-based questions would be tip number 2. So continuing on, good questions. I think you need to ask just good general questions as well too. And I found a video online that does a really good job of kind of identifying maybe, I think she identifies 5 great general questions that you can ask, and then what you should be listening for in the answer. So I'm going to unshare my screen and go to this video. I couldn't embed it in my PowerPoint here, but I'm going to play this video for us. And then while you're watching and listening to this video, put in the chat what stands out to you. Like if there's something that you think, okay, that's a good point, or this is a good thing to listen for. If there's something that stands out to you, put it in the chat. So let me unshare. All right, here's this video. Tell me what you think about this.
Today's hiring question comes from Rosa, a veterinarian, who asks, I'm interviewing vet techs. What are some good interview questions to ask? Well, Rosa, stay tuned. We're going to help you find your next top dog. To get a sense of a candidate's skills, experience, and ability to think under pressure, you have to ask the right questions. But you also have to know what to look for in the answers. So aside from job-specific questions, here are the top 5 interview questions you can ask any candidate. You guys ready for your interview? First question, why do you want to work here? A best in show answer demonstrates a passion for the industry, similar values, and how they'd solve a particular business challenge. A not so great answer tends to be generic, focused on salary, or reveals the candidate views the position merely as a stepping stone. Next up, tell me about a difficult work situation and how you overcame it. Good answers describe a real work-related situation, including the specific steps the candidate used to resolve it. Watch out for answers that blame past coworkers or the company, lack details, or aren't related to how they could succeed with your business. And the third interview question to ask, what career accomplishment makes you most proud? Here's a chance for your candidate to share a career highlight or something not related to work, like volunteering, that demonstrates transferable skills. A less than perfect answer skips key details, is too generic, or is unrelated to the role. Coming in at 4, we have, what are your long-term career goals? The key to this question is to find someone whose values and career goals align with and can benefit your business. A fishy answer can be vague, unrealistic, or reveal a candidate who doesn't plan to stay at your company too long. And lastly, question 5, what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Answers that score the highest are honest, specific, and use examples to explain why a candidate considers their strengths. For the weakness part, you want to hear about real weaknesses, such as trouble delegating. Be cautious of answers that lack self-awareness or seem arrogant. In other words, go for the parakeet over the peacock. Well, we've come to the end of the list. We hope our top 5 questions will come in handy when you're ready to interview your top 5 candidates. But first, you have to post a job. Hey, we can help you with that too. Just float on over to indeed.com/hire.
All right, I thought that was a pretty good video. Let me reshare my my PowerPoint, and then you guys put in the chat, is there anything that stood out to you about that video, or anything she said that really resonated? Yeah, Gina's talking about why they want to work for us. She loves that. It's a good way for them to demonstrate whether they've done research on the company. Yeah, I think that's a great telling sign. If they've done research on you, man, that's a positive indicator that this is a person that's really, really interested in working on you. Similar values, see that. I also liked how she kind of talked about examples, that she's listening for examples in their answers. I think anytime a student really is good about using examples to back up what they're saying, number one, it helps you believe it more that they really have that trait. But I think it makes me think that they're really self-aware and they're aware of kind of their value and what they can contribute to your organization. Let's see, being aware of the vague answers or answers that don't relate to the position. Yeah. And one other thing that I noticed is that she mentioned at one point, like, watch out for, like, if they tell you about, a bad experience or working with people that, irritated them or they talked, poorly about somebody else. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in interviews where the interviewee has kind of talked in a negative way about somebody they worked with or an experience. And gosh, that is just a killer for us in our office anyway, because whenever we hear that, we always think, gosh, they could be talking about us like that. So I thought that was a good point that she made. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right, let's keep moving here. All right. So the other thing that you need to do, sorry, my light goes out sometimes in here in the office. The other thing you need to do is you need to create a welcoming and professional environment. You're selling the job just as much as the interviewee is selling themselves. So you really want to represent your company in this position well. What we encourage a lot of employers to do is, when that candidate walks in for the interview, I mean, they're really, really nervous most of the time. And it helps a little bit instead of just launching right into the interview. A lot of employers that I've worked with, they start off with a quick tour. They showcase some of the cool things that are happening at their company, maybe introduction to key players. They talk about their values as a company and just give that candidate a little bit of time to breathe and to relax a little bit before they just jump into the interview. I think things just like a really warm greeting, offering beverages, water, soft drink, coffee, any of those types of things, I think are really, really good because you want that person to be as comfortable as possible in this environment. Just good communication from the moment they show interest, and even from the moment they apply. And I know there's a lot of automated systems. I'm not sure if you guys would have those or not that, message people as soon as they apply for a position. But gosh, I just think, communicating quickly and just letting them know, thanks so much for applying. We're really excited to review your stuff, giving them a time frame of when you're going to get back with them to possibly schedule an interview. That kind of clear, quick communication just communicates volumes to that person. So whether they take the position or not, I would say that, a professional environment is a really structured interview. And we'll talk about this, I think, on the next slide. But I would have my interview questions, printed out on a sheet of paper. And I would ask the same questions to every candidate that we interview for this position. I saw this on LinkedIn the other day. A friend of mine had put this on. He was talking about an interview that he did. And they did the Zoom interview. And they typed the questions into the chat area on Zoom to keep it in front of the candidate. And the candidate had given them feedback saying that was just awesome. They loved that. It just having that question in front of them all the time just helped them to stay focused and kept them from rambling. So the job candidate really, really liked that in terms of having that question. So if you're doing a Zoom interview, I would encourage that. Put the question in the chat that you're talking about. Obviously, you want to start and end on time. I mean, you want that for your schedule, but you want to respect the candidate's schedule as well, too. Don't go over, don't keep them there longer than what you said you were going to keep them there. I would be really, really rigid about, starting and ending on time. And then the last tip I have to make a really professional and welcoming environment is I would do some type of post-interview survey or discussion and just try to learn about what they liked about the interview process, or if there were any frustrations, if there were any parts that could be better, because you want to make this experience as good as possible with folks. And so I would encourage you to talk to them and just get feedback, because I think that's can be helpful as you kind of structure this process, as you move forward, because we're always going to be hiring people, unfortunately. But when we do it, we want to do it in the best possible way and create the best professional environment that we can. All right, let's keep moving here. Active listening, interview with a group if possible. If it's possible, I would certainly have at least one other person in the interview with you, because for no other reason than just like, it's hard sometimes to take notes and listen at the same time. And sometimes another person will hear things or notice things that you didn't notice. So I always think in our office, we always make it a point to have a group interview, at least a group of 2 or 3, and then we may have a larger interview for a second interview. But I would encourage you to do that. And I would encourage you to print out the questions, and then with room for notes so that everybody can take notes, and then you can compare, after the interview. But I would keep it structured and formal like that, because it's, especially if you interview quite a few candidates, those answers tend to get mixed up, and it's hard to remember who said what. So you just want to be very diligent on taking notes and making sure that you remember, you can associate answers with the right person and that type of thing. And then obviously during the interview, you want to make sure that you're an active listener, and you want to give that candidate verbal and nonverbal clues to demonstrate that you're tuned in, that you're zoned in to what they're saying. And then you also want to ask appropriate follow-up questions. So let me just ask you this, in terms of like verbal and nonverbal clues, I mean, what could you do during the interview to show the candidate that you're really listening to what they're saying? What are some good verbal and nonverbal clues to communicate to show that you're listening? You can put those in the chat if you have some ideas or thoughts on that, and then I can tell you what I think on it as well too. I'll give you guys a second to think about that. Eye contact, don't interrupt. Yeah, absolutely. Smile. Yeah, I love that one. What else can y'all think about? Just good cues, clues, so that they know that you're on the same page with them. Head nodding, keeping my eyes focused on them. You don't lead them. That's really good. So yeah, you guys are saying just the same stuff that I had in my notes. Good eye contact, nodding, maybe paraphrasing. They give you an answer and you kind of paraphrase that back to them. Asking appropriate follow-up questions. I think questions like, how did you do that? Or, who else was involved in this project? Tell me more about this. I think things like that are really, really good, and that shows the candidate that you're tuned in to what the answers that they're giving you. So I try to keep my hands open and not cross my arms. That's really great. You don't want closed body language like this. That communicates a negative thing. So absolutely, that's really good. So yeah. So anyway, that experience, and again, whether you hire this person or not, I mean, you want them to have a good experience with your company in terms of just a good professional experience, and you want to impress that candidate, because, and we tell students this all the time, or actually we tell employers this all the time, but the grapevine is alive and well on campus, and if students have negative experiences with employers, in an interview or whenever, I mean, word gets around, and they pretty soon you have a reputation that's less than stellar sometimes if you're not really taking a lot of effort to make sure that the student is having a good experience with your company. All right. Okay, tip number 5 is talking about illegal questions. And I don't know if you guys know, I mean, I'm sure you do, There are illegal interview questions that we're really not supposed to ask, although I think most of us, excuse me, don't intentionally ask illegal questions. I think a lot of times it's really, we just don't think through exactly what we're wanting to know and how to phrase that. Illegal questions are anything that really isn't job related, about, race, religion, things like that. So here's, on the slide, I put over here on this side, I put some illegal questions and then maybe what you could do to rephrase those. Sometimes employers will ask, where do you live? And that's an illegal interviewing question because it really doesn't have anything to do with the job. But in the employer's defense, probably what they're wondering is like, is getting to work going to be difficult? Do you live a long way away? Is this going to be an issue? So maybe a better way to phrase that would be like, will transportation to and from work be a problem for you? I mean, and that's a great question rather than where do you live? How old you are? Sometimes employers ask this, and again, I don't think it's like, hey, I want to ask this illegal question, but I think they're concerned about maybe physical demands, maybe technology demands, or I don't know what it might be, but it's usually one of those things. So a better way to phrase that question would be, this job has the following physical demands. Are any of these going to be an issue for you? And just being really upfront with them about, what it is you're looking for. Are you a native English speaker? That's an illegal interviewing question. But again, I think the employer is probably just wondering about communication. Is this person going to be able to communicate well with my customers? So you could ask, how would you rate your communication skills? That would be a better way to ask that question. Have you ever been arrested? I mean, I would probably want to know that as well too. And the reason an employer would want to know that is they just want to know, is this person going to cause problems, at my company? And so a better way to ask that question, you might say, have you ever been disciplined for violating company policy at a previous job? So I think on the illegal questions, I think, those types of questions, just really think about, what am I trying to get at with this question? Sometimes I've heard employers or heard of employers asking students like, do you plan to start a family? And their concern is like, maybe there's going to be a lot of travel with the job and the student wouldn't be able to do that. And that's what they need to ask rather than, are you planning on starting a family? They're making assumptions that, hey, they won't want to leave, they won't want to travel. And maybe that's right. But a better question would be, hey, 50% of this job requires travel. Are you okay with doing this? So anyway, think about your questions and make sure that you're not asking illegal questions and phrase them in a legal way. Just some other thoughts on illegal questions. Again, don't ask anything that isn't job related. Don't beat around the bush. Like, if you want to know if a future employee is going to be punctual, I would just discuss it directly. Don't try to ask questions about where they live or if they have a car or if they have to pick up children from school. I would just simply ask, hey, being on time is really important in this job. Do you foresee any problem with you being here at 8 o'clock every day? I would just be really direct with people in terms of kind of what your expectations are. And I think you're going to come across better that way, and you're not going to ask illegal questions doing it that way. Don't cross the line into personal discussion. Sometimes interviews can just turn into like a visit where you talk about anything and everything, and I would discourage that because and I think it is important to get to know the person, but I think you'll have maybe opportunities to do that at other times than the formal interview. We don't do it so much in our office anymore, but we used to take people out to lunch or breakfast all the time for our professional positions as well. And that was a great way to kind of gauge a person's polish and maybe just to get to know them a little bit more as a person. And it wasn't a formal interview. I mean, it was part of our interview process, I guess, but we didn't have that personal discussion in the formal interview. So So I would stick to my list of questions and maybe follow-up questions, but I wouldn't get in a personal discussion within the formal interview. And then I wouldn't ask anything that I can learn from a different source. So if you're doing a background check on people, I mean, that's going to give you a lot of information that you won't need to ask about, like if they've ever been convicted or if they've had financial problems or things like that. You're going to find that out with the background check. So anyway, if you're going to get that information in another way, I wouldn't ask it in the interview. Or if you can get it through following up with references, then I wouldn't ask it in the interview. All right, a couple more things here. Just provide clear information about the job duties, expectations, and company culture. I think it's really smart just to be forthright with people. If there's an aspect of your job that is just really, really important, and it would be a deal breaker if that person couldn't do it, I would just tell them. In our office, we have recently hired in the last year and a half, some employer relations coordinators, and those people are people that go out and they call on employers and they contact employers. That is their job. And and I'm showing my age here, but a lot of younger people have hesitancy about picking up the phone and calling people on the phone or making in-person visits and things like that. So with our ER folks, we just asked them, we just said, hey, calling employers, going to visit them in person, that's critical for this job. Do you foresee any, problem doing this at all? And we just let them know up front that that was the expectation and that's what we were going to be looking for. So, because we wanted that person to know that that was going to be part of the job. And if they just hated to call people on the phone, we wanted them to know that, hey, that's going to be our expectation. And if that's something that you can't do, because we wanted them to know what they're getting into. So, and it wasn't a mean thing. I would say it's really a nice thing to communicate that expectation and kind of the culture of your company. So if there's things like that in your company, like, hey, we just need people that are able to do this, or this is super important to us, or this is, kind of how our team works and we really value this, this, and this, I would just make it super clear kind of what your expectations are so that the candidate, they can make the best decision for them. Because after that discussion, if they walk away thinking, wow, that just doesn't sound like me at all, I think I would be really uncomfortable there, then they're probably going to choose not to, take the job if you offer it. And that's what you want. So anyway, provide clear information about job duties and company expectations and company culture. All right, and the last tip number 7, is follow up in a timely manner. And I hear this from students all the time, that they apply for jobs or they interview for a job and then they just never hear anything back. And I get it. I know that it's busy, and once you hire somebody, there's a million things to do in terms of training, and it's hard to find the time to close the loop with those folks that you didn't select. But gosh, I would encourage you to do that. Even if the student doesn't get the position with you, if you are a professional and had conducted a really, professional, warm interview, and then you close the loop with them, they're going to appreciate that. Even though they may be disappointed that they didn't get the position, they're going to appreciate the fact that you thought enough of them to close the loop for them so that they can move on and continue their search someplace else. And I would even say that I would, follow up quickly even when they apply. And I mentioned this earlier on another slide, but when they send you their stuff, I mean, I would respond really quickly, saying, hey, thank you so much for applying. We're so excited to review your information, and let them know exactly when you're going to do what step. But I think that kind of follow up with them will go a long way with you in terms of recruiting the right folks. All right, that's the main stuff that I have. Do you guys have any questions? So here's all of my contact information. And again, I'll ask Gina to share this whole PowerPoint presentation with you, so you'll have all of the information. But I will open it up to any questions if y'all want to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute, whatever you want to do. I'll do my best to answer however I can.
Steve, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Like you mentioned, you're welcome to type questions into chat, or if you're more comfortable, you can unmute yourselves as well. While y'all are thinking about your questions, one thing that I wanted you to mention, Steve, so we kind of talked about how anyone can work with you to find employees, and it's not just current students. I know you're working with alumni as well. Will you just kind of fill us in on what does that process look like? I know you can post jobs for people online. What can you do for our small business clients?
So we are, in terms of like posting jobs, we have a jobs database. It's called Handshake that we, employers, you guys can post internships, part-time jobs, full-time jobs that you have. It doesn't cost anything to do that. So all you need to do is contact our office and we can get you connected with our Handshake database. The other thing that we can do is once you post, we can help you kind of market that across campus. We can send out e-blasts to maybe particular majors. If there's a certain major you're looking for, we can send it to faculty, different things like that. We also do every long semester, we do a job fair. So if you're interested in interns or full-time people, we have our career expo that happens every fall and spring. We've already had the one for the spring, but that would be a great, we can give you information about that and what that looks like. There's a cost to that, but it's not a lot, and it's a great way to meet a lot of good students. And then the last thing that I would just mention is we can help you if you want to do information sessions, table on campus. Maybe you want to set up a table in the JVK to recruit, part-time workers. We can help you make those kinds of connections as well too. So I would encourage you just to reach out to our office, tell us kind of what your recruiting needs are, and we can tap you into the different avenues to try to help connect you with good students or graduates.
Love that. I know you've helped us find many a wonderful student worker. We appreciate that. All right, if nobody, we do have one question from Adam. Adam asks, what is a good way to let the employee know that there will be opportunities to their own professional career that aren't necessarily given extra paid benefits? Oh, that's a good question. He gave an example and said, we will send you to extra training opportunities that will grow your skill set, but we can't necessarily pay you more. Have you had that come up, Steve?
Well, I think a lot of employers, I think that are really smart, especially like during that interview time, maybe when they're doing a company tour or they're just talking about the values that their company has. A lot of times they may, highlight things like that. And, we do that at the university because we certainly can't be the top, salary provider. But there's other perks and benefits of working on a university campus, and we make sure that we, outline all of those to our folks whenever they're applying to our position. So, yeah, that's a great point. And if you've got some constraints on salary, and we all do, I think I would certainly highlight the other non-monetary things that you can offer a candidate, because sometimes, and I'm just thinking about college students I talk with, money certainly is important. I mean, we all have a threshold that we need to make, but a lot of times, like, work-life balance, those training opportunities, I don't know, Gina and I were talking about all the cool events that you can go to as that happen on campus as a WT employee, different things like that, maybe a discount to a health club membership, different things like that can, especially for some of the younger applicants, those can be a big deal. And so I think it's really smart to highlight those. I would do it like when I'm touring them through my space, when I'm talking about the values and kind of our philosophy as a department or company, that's probably when I would highlight that stuff.
Yeah. One of the things that we have at WT, and you mentioned we've got some amazing perks that I've enjoyed. A couple of years ago, our HR department put together, I know we've got a web page. I think there's a PDF that just lists all of the perks. When we send y'all the recording and the follow-up information, I will find that, and that way you can use that as a model for your own if that's something that you want to develop.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yes. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna right quick. I am notorious for forgetting to ask y'all to fill out a post-workshop survey for us right quick. So if you don't mind answering just a couple of questions, Their last two questions on there. One, do you want to join the email newsletter list? If you're not already on there, I promise we don't spam you. We send a newsletter once a month and it's got all these training opportunities in it. Our March newsletter went out this month and there were a couple of grant opportunities in it. News, we try to keep it short, and then we'll send some occasional workshop emails. And then if you're not already working with the SBDC, remember that we do that at no charge. If you'd like for Aaliyah to contact you at a later date this week and get in touch with you and let you know how to do that, we'd be glad to do so. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I'll leave that poll up for a few minutes. But Steve, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to work with you, and we appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Thank you for asking me to do it. I love doing this and glad to share whatever information we can.
Wonderful. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.